Are you tired of reading tons of information, listening in class, watching boring YouTube video after boring YouTube video, and your teacher actually expects you to remember it all? There has to be a better way. Hi, I'm Ben Freeman from freeman-pedia.com, and I've got the answer: note-taking. It's a simple, easy way to retain even the largest amount of information in a clear, concise manner to help you remember large amounts of information in both the short and long term. You know, the number one question I get from students is, how much money do you make from YouTube? And the answer is, so much money. The second question I get is, how do you take notes in history class? Luckily, there are a ton of methods out there to help you out. In this video, I'm gonna highlight a few of them and then show you how I, to this day, take notes for school or work or whatever. But before we get started here, one caveat. If you're just taking notes because your teacher requires you to or your parents require you to, then just skip this video. You're not ready. You're not. Note-taking is a skill you will need in the future regardless of your profession or college or whatever you get into later in life. And if you're just doing this to check a box, you're not ready. Open your calendar app, set a reminder for next year at this time. When you're at a point when you actually are ready to put in the work and flex this muscle so that you can take in information and organize it in a fast, efficient manner, not to pass some quiz or turn in some notes for a completion grade, but to truly learn and understand a complex reading or topic. Still here? Cool. Let's address one thing up front about note-taking. If you want to remember what you're learning, you have to write it down. Back in 2014, a couple of professors from UCLA and Princeton, safety schools, published a study in the journal Psychological Science. I'll save you the read, but they proved in multiple trials that students who took handwritten notes consistently outperformed students who typed their notes. Their reasoning was that students who took handwritten notes, although it was more tedious, were actually having to process the information. Typers were just writing verbatim what they heard in a lecture. And since typers weren't reframing things in their own words, they weren't actually learning the material. And look, I get it. You have all of this technology at your disposal and you want to unleash its power against your stupid homework. But the real reason you want to use a computer, it's easier, it's faster, it's less painful. But it also won't help you learn better. Writing is learning. And not just writing, but a 2021 study from the University of Tokyo showed that writing on physical paper actually increased retention as well. Oh, in that same study, students who wrote on physical paper completed their note-taking 25% faster than those on an electronic device. So, take notes on physical paper, you will remember more and it will take less time. Okay, so how do you take notes? Here's a few methods to help you out. The first method is the toughest. They're called Cornell Notes, and these aren't just for the casual note taker. This method was invented back in the 1950s at, you guessed it, Cornell University, and is meant to be revisited after you're done taking notes. It works like this. Take your standard notebook paper and draw a line on the left side over here. Now, when you're taking notes on a reading or lecture or video, take those off to the right. But you hear a keyword like def-shermay or caravanserai, you know, the kind of word that you know your teacher is about to be obsessed with on a quiz or a test, write that over on the left. Also, if you're writing something on the right about a coerced labor system and you think of a question about it but don't have time or the energy to ask your teacher, write a question off to the left. Now here's my favorite feature of the Cornell Notes. Leave some space down there at the bottom of each page. Just leave it blank. And then come back to it after the lecture, or the next day, even better, the next day. And in the space down there, summarize the page. This way you're rewriting the key points and summarizing again later. If you can't summarize the topic, well, you better go back and review this information again until you can. That's how you Cornell Notes. Full disclosure, I tried to do this with my students a few years ago, and it seemed like it was a real struggle for them to take notes and then write questions and then constantly revisit their notes and later summarize and write the key points at the bottom. So if you're in for a more interactive approach, Cornell Notes might be the move. The second note-taking strategy is a bit more visual. It's called the boxing method. It's pretty basic. For each topic, start a new box. One of the nice things about this feature is that you can connect the ideas for comparisons and similarities or differences, causes and effects. That kind of thing is where the boxing method can help out. My problem here, I start to feel like Charlie breaking down Pepe Silva's role in the mailroom conspiracy. It's too chaotic for me. But if you like having different ideas chunked in boxes and being able to group them together by linking them with lines, maybe the boxing method is for you. Third method, charting. Everyone loves a good chart, but before you get into this style, you gotta know what kind of information you're gonna be breaking down. The reason you gotta create a chart and then fill it in. To do that, you need to know what categories and column titles to use. So this might best be used as a review strategy rather than a live action note-taking sesh. Now I do this for Unit 3 of AP World History Modern, but I'm a teacher so I can pre-fill out a chart and have students plug and play as we go. I know the columns that we're covering ahead of time. I know the empires we're covering. I know how they need to know how they centralized control. I know that they need to know how they legitimize power through art. So if your teacher breaks out one of these bad boys, handwriting in these boxes is a nice organized way to take some quality notes. But warning, freelancing a chart can be tough, so enter with caution if you're planning on taking notes in a chart. Side note, I posted both the empty and completed versions of my Unit 3 note-taking chart over in the old Ultimate Review packet. I've linked to the free trial below so you can cop both an empty and a completed version for you to try out in your class. While you're there, check out the study guides, videos, all the other goodies designed by me to help you get an A in your AP World History class and a 5 on the AP exam. So those are some of the methods you could use to take notes. Having said that, I don't use any of those. The method I use, outlining. Back in middle school in the 20th century, my teachers made me use a bunch of letters and Roman numerals. It was madness. So I eventually took on a simplified form of this without all the extras A's and I's. You're basically taking down information like folders are organized on a computer. Start on the left and indent with a big idea. Anything related to or dealing with that topic, indent and write underneath it. That way, when you're looking back at your notes, you have a pre-made section just for that main topic with the other stuff related to it underneath. And full disclosure, I'm a doodler. Guilty as charged, I'm a doodler. So I'll often incorporate drawings or even sketches into my notes. It makes each section visually unique, and that helps me remember what's going on at that point in the lecture or the video. It's super basic, but it works for me. And since I've been using this modified outline since middle school and high school, it's really second nature to me. I use it in my weekly calendars and lists of stuff I need to accomplish. I even made notes on what to put in this video in that style. So whatever style you use, you'll get better at it and adapt it more to your personal style over time with practice. Speaking of, let's practice on this Wikipedia article from the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation marked a break with existing Christian traditions, and both the Protestant and Catholic Reformations contributed to the growth of Christianity. Okay, so I'm going to post a screenshot of the Wikipedia article up on the screen. Pause this video and take notes on this section. Use whatever method you want, but I'll show you my notes and you can compare. Okay, so before I show you mine, I'm using a font on a digital document. The reason you couldn't read my handwriting, but I can read my handwriting, and that's the important thing. Your notes are for you, to help you learn. So here's the digitally translated version of what I would have written down. I like to write the big idea big at the top. Then I indent in so I can see the other main things at a glance. So the Protestant Reformation was a challenge to Catholics around the end of the Middle Ages that kicked off with Luther and his 95 Theses, which got printed by the printing press and changed the game. The major change was about how you reach salvation, aka getting to heaven. These Protestants, as they were called, thought that all you needed was faith alone, while the Catholics thought you also needed good works. Honestly, in making this video, I took a break between writing these notes and then writing this part I'm saying now. The notes legit helped me remember what I was looking at. Is there more information on the Protestant Reformation than what we just went over? Of course there is, but you know your role. If you're in a class like I teach, AP World History, you're not going to need a lot more detail than what we just took notes on. You got a name to use if you need it, Martin Luther. You got a document in there, 95 Theses, and you got the main idea of the movement. Boom, done. If you're deep diving into Zwingli versus Calvin, that's fine for a graduate level religious studies class in college, but for AP World, these notes should work fine. So you have a lot to choose from when it comes to taking notes in history. I like the outlining method with a few little sketches here and there. There are only two things that actually matter with note-taking in a history class. First, you find a method that suits your particular style of learning. And second, the notes you take actually leave a concise record of the key ideas and concepts to help you learn in real time and to review anything later on. Oh, and practice. It won't be easy at first, but it took me about a minute to take notes on the Protestant Reformation thing, and eventually you'll be able to go even faster and do a better job than I could ever do. So that was one of the most asked questions I get about AP World History. If you need more help like this, head on over to theultimatereviewpacket.com and sign up for the Ultimate Review Pack to help you with all the tips and tricks for the AP World History exam this May.